Physical versus digital, one of the most controversial subjects in the retro community. Hi, what's up guys? It's Jay from the J Blast Network. You're tuning in to another retro discussion and talk about the differences, the advantages, and disadvantages of physical versus digital. Now, a disclaimer before anyone comes in the comments: emulation is the best way. It is the best way. I know, we all know this is strictly about physical versus digital, so don't come in here with some smart ass comment. I know you guys want to do it. I know you guys always do it with other people's videos. Please don't do it here, because I already acknowledged it. Anyway, moving on to the main point of the video: physical versus digital. You know, I think having these sets of games, Dot Hack, where you're going into a video game within a video game, and also Mega Man Battle Network, where you're going into the digital world from the physical world, really resonate with this video. So I'm gonna have gameplay of both of them in the background. That's why they're in the thumbnail too. Anyway, let's actually start the video now. Physical versus digital. Now, I actually have some hot takes when it comes to this subject, because I'm not on either side completely. I have had a lot of advantages buying digital games over the past few years, and I didn't really start buying digital games a lot until I got the PS4 and Xbox One. I feel like that was the era where digital games just became a lot more viable to buy, instead of just buying them and having to wait 50 million years for a download, especially if you're on the PS3, man. Oh my god. I mean, if you were on a PS3, some games had like downloads that would take hours just to start the game, and now I have to do that for every game anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter. But the point is, I was in college, I couldn't go everywhere every single day, every time I wanted to, and when a game came out, it was just easier to get the digital version. Plus, it saved a lot of space, because again, I was in college, and I built up a great digital library on both systems and even the Switch. And I think in terms of space, which that is a problem to a lot of people, because not everybody has this giant room they can store 50 million games in, I think it's great. You can protect your account. There's often this myth I hear where people say, oh, it's digital, you can't play offline if you buy the game digital. That's not true. You can't play offline after 7 days if you have the game on like some premium pass like PS Plus or Nintendo Switch Online or something like that. But you can play your digital games offline. A lot of people aren't setting their accounts to primary on the system that they play on, or in the Xbox case, setting the Xbox to home. Once you do that, then you can play those games offline. Now, you can't add another account and play their games offline unless you have the primary account, which that's true, but for your main account where you buy your games at, if you set it to primary, you will be able to play your games offline with no issues. The guys, they have to do stuff like this because I mean, it's legal trouble if they don't. Just a heads up. But there is some advantages to getting digital. Another great thing about digital is that there have been times where games just aren't available in my location, or people scalp those games up, or those games get very expensive, and it's just easier to get it digital. Digital ends up having a lot of sales unless you're on a Nintendo console. But to be fair, the physical first party Nintendo games don't really go on sale that much either. But digital's sales end up happening a lot. I mean, they've been going pretty hard. I've seen games that were $60 going for $20 multiple times, and like sales that are back to back to back to back. And it's overall helped me build up my library over time, because I don't really buy games at full price like that. I haven't really been able to, and nor do I really want to at this point, unless it's something really special. So it's great to have that advantage, and it's great to be able to download at that instant. Another thing is that when you buy a disc now for these modern systems, you have to install the game anyway. Like, the install size of the game is going to be installed to your system regardless of whether you get it physical or digital, unless you are buying a Switch game. And even some Switch games that are physical require you to download certain parts of the game to the Switch, which to me is really stupid. That's like a fake physical. And let's speaking on fake physicals, let's talk about those fake physical copies, man. Like, you had stuff like the Mega Man Legacy Collection where like half of the game is physical, the other half is digital. It's like, that's a fake physical copy. You still need an account for that. And I see this stuff all the time with the Switch where like half of the game or parts of the game are digital only, and you need a digital account. So like, it just makes the point of the physical version pointless, because you need a digital account to get the full experience of that game that you just bought physically. You see what I'm saying? I feel like you're wasting money, and that's what's a problem with a lot of the physical media now in the modern era, is that it feels so pointless to even go after the physical media, because the digital media ends up having bonuses like digital deluxe editions, or they just cut content, and it just makes it pointless to even say I'm preserving this game because I bought this game physical. Not to mention all the day one patches that keep being released. games and DLC, and especially if you're playing a fighting game like Dragon Ball FighterZ or Street Fighter 5, where a majority of the roster is DLC. I mean, if we go like a few years from now and the server shut down and we somehow can't buy these characters or these games anymore, then we're missing out on a ton of content that we just can't buy. Right? And a physical edition just isn't going to save you in the modern gaming landscape. You know what was annoying back in the day? We had to buy those online passes for certain games. That was really annoying to have to do. And if you had a physical version, you still had to buy the online pass. And it was stupid. It was even dumber when you had the Xbox because you had the Xbox games with gold. But it just goes to show you that, again, this physical version is not preserving everything. I mean, I bought Ratchet and Clank All for One finally, but I can't play online. It's not like anybody's playing on the game online anyway, but I can't play the game online unless I buy a freaking online pass for this 10-plus-year-old game. That is so dumb. Just out of the box, I can't play a part of this game because I have to pay for something on the digital storefront. I mean, that's something I don't know what to say about it. My whole point in saying this is that in the modern era, I feel like digital is just becoming the way because there's less of a difference between buying a physical copy and a digital copy sometimes. I mean, they don't even include manuals in the physical copies anymore, and that sucks. I remember going to the store and having a manual that taught me everything, and I guess I know the internet is like the biggest thing now, and everyone can just search up how to beat a game, but it would still be nice to own a manual. It's just becoming less and less of a reason to buy the physical copy. And you know what's crazy? I agree with some people. They say the digital copy should be cheaper than the physical copies because they're not manufacturing the physical copy. They're not manufacturing a disc or a case. And even for the physical copy, they're charging us more, but we don't even get the stuff that we got back in the day. We don't get a manual. We don't get inserts. We just get a case, a cheap looking case and a cheap feeling case, to be honest, and a Blu-ray disc or whatever disc you have it on, or a cartridge. And that's pretty much it for how modern gaming goes. I mean, it's like we're getting charged more for less. You know, it's just strange. But again, I'm prefacing the modern era. The digital age is just upon us, and I feel like digital games are just the future of the modern era. I just starting to see less of a reason to even bother with getting these physical games, because to me, you're not really preserving anything when an update can come along and just completely be required for that game. And if you don't know the update, then you can't fix a certain bug that breaks the game, or you can't get access to this content. So even if it was taken down, even if it was taken out the store, I mean, you wouldn't be able to get content regardless if you had a physical or a digital version. It's just how our world is. Now, I don't like that that's the way stuff is. I don't like how stuff can vanish in an instant. I don't like how a lot of our stuff is tied to our accounts. I don't like how, many of the games content are just not on the disc and you have to pay for DLC, and if the store goes down, we're completely screwed on that. I mean, we saw that with the Nintendo eShop. When that store went down, you can't even get DLC no more. You can't get any games anymore, and you're locked out of great content because the store shut down and you didn't buy it in time. I hate that that's the way it is, but it is the way it is. And like I said, this goes to prove my point that in terms of the modern console, the digital storefront just is the way to me, in my opinion. It slowly started with the 360 era when they started implementing the DLC and microtransactions, and back then it was so egregious because they were trying to see what they were going to get, what they could get away with. And I remember the backlash back then was crazy. Like, you guys remember when we found DLC on the disc and then people would freak the hell out? Like, they would get so mad because they were like, oh, how dare you take out this content, sell it to me for more money, and then try to get a quick buck out of me for buying this content that's already on the damn disc. What we come to understand now is that it's on the disc, at least the early DLC is on the disc, because they were working on the early DLC and they're doing this to try to get the DLC out in a faster manner so that it can come out within the game's release window or after the game's release window, and it can keep the momentum up of the game. But back in the day, it was ruthless, man. It was fucking ruthless, especially Blackbuster Craig. I remember him, man. That dude went in on that. And the microtransactions, they were definitely egregious to the point where, I mean, everyone was just mad. I mean, the fact that we had to pay for an online pass on systems that already required us to pay for online, like, that was ridiculous. That was the dumbest shit I've ever heard of. It was probably one of the worst things they ever charged for. And they still have some egregious microtransactions, and some of them have gone down. But the way people feel about it now is not as much as people felt about it before. I mean, if you see how people felt about it before, you think that this stuff would not exist nowadays. But no, companies kept pushing. People like me and others just adjusted to it, and we stopped complaining. Or unless it gets as bad as back then we're going to keep complaining, because that's just greed. That's just greed. That's greed at its freaking finest, and that's how you kill your game instantly. But when everything goes right in today's world, I would still prefer to just buy the digital version, especially on the Switch, where cartridges are annoying to handle. And I remember back in the day, I was scared of losing my Game Boy Advance and DS cartridges, my PSP games, because they were so small. But when you have it on the Switch digital, you don't have to worry about that. I can just open the Switch and put the next game and be on my merry day. But in terms of the older stuff, the retro consoles, the PS2s, the Xbox, you technically say the Xbox 360s and the PS3s, I'd rather have physical. Now, in terms of the Xbox 360 and PS3, it's just because it took forever to download stuff. That was part of the reason why this system took forever to be implemented, because the internet couldn't handle it. It took forever to download games, couldn't turn off your system. You had to wait for hours upon hours to play a game. I mean, it was just better to get a physical version. In space, the storage for this stuff was expensive. Now, the storage for this stuff is expensive today, but no matter if you get the physical or digital version, you have to install that game onto your system, which is going to use up space anyway. So there's no advantage to getting the physical version for that reason. I used to do that for my 360 because it was like, oh, this game's going to be big. I might as well get the disc version and it will mitigate the size. But now we can't even do that. We don't have the option of doing that. We have to install the entire game onto our system like we're playing a game on Steam and installing it there. So that creates that whole problem. But back to the other retro consoles, there wasn't really a digital market, and technically there was, and it technically started back on the Sega Genesis with the Sega Channel, where you could download games and play them through the Sega Channel, but barely anybody had that. And I'm pretty sure it was slow as molasses to even download and play those games, and it was just a pain in the ass. I imagine it was when you were playing the Dreamcast, but back then it was just cool to be able to play a game online, like Phantasy Star Online like that. But for older stuff, I do like having the physical version just to be able to play it on my system. Now, there's many ways to play games on your system without having the physical version. In fact, I can teach you guys some of those ways in some of these other videos. But I love that nostalgic feeling of just putting the disc in and playing the game. And that's where I think physical will, prevail, because people just love that feeling of putting the disc in and playing the game. It's very simple. It is more simple still to go to the store and buy a new PS5 game as disc and then put it in your system. The problem is sometimes the system's going to say this game is going to update, and it gets a little bit complicated for most people. I'm not a hater of physical. I really am not. I hope this video doesn't come off as me just going for the digital side only, because the physical side still does matter. There still are places where people just can't connect to the internet. But here's the issue. In order to even play your consoles now, you have to connect to the internet at least once. I remember I traded in my Xbox One to the Xbox Series, and the guy told me I had to sign in to my Xbox One because I factory reset it. And that was because he couldn't play a game because he needed an account to sign in to connect to online once in order to even be able to play the system in the first place. So those guys have just been screwed regardless. But if you really care about physical, then I suggest just keeping that mindset for the older games, because that's really where it's at. I'm just being honest with you. I just see no value in getting the physical games on the newer systems, or to differentiate between both of them. I just see no value in it. There's just isn't enough of that. I know people are like, be physical, I have a disc, I can always put a disc in, but I can still load up my account, and Sony or Microsoft has to respect the fact that I loaded up my account on my system and that I have those games bought on my system. Again, there are legal things that protect this. They protect this so we can't get screwed over. And if Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft does do something like that, then they'd be in big legal trouble, right? They have to have these protections because it's what we're buying, software that we're buying. Like, go on your iPhone, right? You probably bought some software on your iPhone for like your iPhone 4 or 3 or whatever back in 2011. You can still re-download that software. Even if that software doesn't work, you can still re-download that software if you have your account, because you already bought it in the past. It doesn't matter if it still works. It doesn't matter if it's functional on your iPhone. All that matters is that you bought it and now you'll be able to download it. And that's how they have to respect you as a customer when it comes to buying this stuff. That's why Nintendo, even though they shut down the 3DS shop, you can still re-download software. Even though they shut down the Wii U shop, you can still re-download software. With PlayStation, I'm pretty sure PlayStation is coming soon to shut down their PS3 and PS Vita shops. You will still be able to download software because they or re-download your software because they really cannot just say, hey, too bad you can't re-download your software anymore. Haha. We got you. You wasted your money, unless they give us a total refund of everything we purchased, which they're not doing. So they're just going to do that. But to wrap this video up, I just think it's a very interesting topic because I see a lot of the retro YouTubers always scream about stuff being physical, and I get it. I understand it. But I feel like for the modern age, there's just this undeniability that the lines are just blurring between the physical and the digital realm. If a lot of your content in the game, or any content in the game, has to require or requires a download code, requires you to go to the store and buy DLC for that game, then you don't have the game preserved. You will never have the game physically reserved on that disc because you had to download data from an account. If you go to another PlayStation 5 or another Xbox and put, for instance, King of Fighters 15 in that, and you tried to play it, you wouldn't have your characters without your account. It just isn't there. And I think this video is mostly about physical versus digital for the modern era because that's where the real problem is. You know, a lot of guys, want to stick to the old ways. And I don't think that physical is going to die out completely. I don't think that's what's going to happen. It's just not going to happen. The stores still need to sell games, but they are starting to sell physical download codes, which is pretty stupid to me. But they are starting to sell that to kind of counteract this, even though they're not making money from a lot of money from that. And that is going to kill some stores like GameStop, which GameStop's already killing itself. But that's another topic for another video. Again, like when you have stuff like that on the shelves, I mean, the lines are just blurred, The lines are blurred, and it's not our fault. It's not, people being biased. It's the companies. The companies are deciding, I don't want to put this data on this. I want people to download this game. Part of it is because they want people to switch to digital because they want more money off of the digital stores because they make more profit from you buying directly from the digital stores. And part of it is because they want to protect sales. I'm going to leave you off on this one story before I fully end the video. There was a story I've heard from David Jaffe about how God of War 3 sold a lot. However, apparently it was something with the numbers, something like that, that the game was still, or the game had a lot of copies still on store shelves because people were beating the game and bringing it back to GameStop and trading it in right after they beat it, which does cause problems to their sales because now Sony can, or I said Sony, but GameStop can make profit off of those games fully without Sony making any profit at all because technically those are all pre-owned games. And Sony in a way is losing money, and that's money that's being lost into making the next God of War game because everybody did that. Now, I'm not saying that we should have DRM. I don't want DRM. In fact, what Xbox did at the beginning of that generation was dumb as hell. But that's the reason, part of the reason why they're doing this too, is that they want to maximize that profit, get the most profit, because trade-ins don't offer value. When you buy something from someone on eBay, you're not giving money to Sony. You're not giving money to Nintendo. You're giving money to that seller. You're giving money to GameStop, or you're giving money to whoever is selling the product. So it's not even like this principle of, oh, we're making money from it. Oh, we're just going to be greedy. A lot of it is, hey, we're missing out on potential sales. And with how expensive games are, we need those potential sales so we can make the next game in this beloved series, because God knows we need every single penny and every single arm on deck to make these new AAA games and sell it to you for $70 freaking dollars, man. That's also another video that could be planned out. But let me know what you guys think in the comments on this subject for modern games. If you collect physical or you collect digital, what do you prefer and why do you prefer? Let me know down in the comments. I'm open to discussion. I really want to see what you guys think because I feel like I'm one of the only people who is, like, I guess, digital on the digital side, or at least in the defense of digital in some ways in the modern era. And I've just kind of said I'm going to adapt because we really aren't changing what's going to happen with these games. It's a history that has caused this, and it's that history that's going to keep this to stay. And I feel like I'm one of the only people that actually constantly rationalize and look at like, hey, yes, you can play these games offline. Yes, you can do things digital. No, your physical copy is not saving you unless they keep making physical copies of after every update. You know what I'm saying? If you guys get what I'm saying, it's just, I just feel like there's a lot of misconception when it comes to the digital side of this discussion, because a lot of the people discussing it are older people who want their physical games. Like, I get it. I'm partially the same way when it comes to older stuff, but you just can't deny that they have made a lot of safe measures for the digital store. Except for that one time that Sony got hacked and the PSN store and the PSNs in general was offline for a month because I had an account then. That was crazy. Anyway, it enables two-factor verification, not the phone one. Enable two-factor verification where you have to go into the app and see it, and you should be good. And I'm gonna leave it off on that note with that advice. With that being said, thanks for watching the video. I got more retro discussions on the way, more content on the way. And with that being said, this is the J Blast Network signing out. And don't forget, you better believe, baby. Yeah.